It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman.
This is Dan Jurgen.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action.
This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Birthright.
And you're listening to the Krypton Report.
The Krypton Report podcast is dedicated to all things Superman, Supergirl, and the planet Krypton. We discuss movies, TV, game, comics, and all things DC. So join me, Tyler, with my co-host James and Jania. Greetings, listeners, and welcome. It's me. It's Tyler, the Superman of Blue. And we're going to get back in the swing of things with our weekly writer spotlight. Now, this is just a little bit of a spotlight on a writer that I love. And I'm not going to beat around the bush, but today we're talking about Scott Snyder. I had the pleasure in October of meeting Scott Snyder, and he was just an awesome person to meet, and someone that I would love to have just got to sit down and really talk more with about his book, about writing. Brian is taking his writing class, and it's just been something amazing to just get to talk with him face to face. So with much further ado, I'm just going to kind of talk a little bit about Mr. Snyder here, because his work seems to come up a lot. Let's see. Notable works is Batman. Of course, he's the creator of the Court of Owls, and I'm just going to say right now that I really hope the Court of Owls is somehow incorporated in Matt Reeves' Batman films. That's all I'm going to say here. He worked on Detective Comics with the Dick Grayson Black Mirror, Witches, which I reread this past October, and I bought Creepy Swamp Thing. His Swamp Thing is great. I bought his Swamp Thing for Jania when she was interested in some Swamp Thing reading. We found it, and she was reading it as well as going back and reading others. He has done Justice League, Dark Knight's Metal, Dark Knight's Death Metal, and many, many more things. Superman, Unchained, which we had hoped was going to play a larger role in Superman Lois, but it hadn't, but spoilers. And American Vampire, which, if anyone has listened to my discussions over on World's Finest True Believer podcast, where I have been talking American Vampire, and will return at some point to discuss the second volume of Scott Snyder's American Vampire work. It is a great, great, amazing piece of just comics. So let's learn about a little bit of Scott's life, shall we? At the age of 9, Scott attended a summer camp where one of the counselors read Stephen King's Eyes of the Dragon to him over the summer, an experience that Snyder says really jump-started his love for storytelling. He is also influenced by the writings of Dennis Johnson, Raymond Carver, Rick Bass, Joy Williams, Elizabeth McCracken, Stephen King, Tobias Wolff, and George Saunders. In comics, he has named Alan Moore, Frank Miller as his favorite writers. Snyder graduated from Brown University in 1998 with a degree in creative writing, and then worked at Walt Disney World for about a year. He initially worked as a custodian, but after he injured his shoulder and started to have some problems with his coworkers, he auditioned and worked as some of the characters. Snyder's Disney World stint strongly influenced his writing, he later recalled. It did a world of good for my writing. All the things I ended up writing about, those things that are deeply frightening to me, fear of commitment and growing up, fear of losing loved ones, the wonder and terror of falling in love, all of it was constantly being played out all around me in this weird, cartoonish, magnified way at Disney. It's pretty crazy, not gonna lie. His first collection of stories, Voodoo Heart, was published by the Daily Press in June of 2006. The collection received starred reviews from Publishers Weekly and Booklist, and was a Kirkus Review Hot Debut of the Year. The New York Times published a positive review by author Andrew Sean Gray in the Sunday Book Review. Stephen King picked up 2 of the included stories, Wreck and Dumpster Tuesday, for the 2007 The Best American Short Stories Anthology. In 2008, Snyder wrote a short story called The 13th Egg for the anthology Who Can Save Us Now? Brand New Superheroes and Their Amazing Short Stories. Snyder taught writing at New York University, Columbia University, and Sarah Lawrence College. It's pretty impressive, I will say. Voodoo Heart is a book that I want to get and read. Just trying to keep up on Snyder's comics itself. Recently, Brian and I went up to Pack Rat Comics here in Ohio, and Brian picked up his one of his IDW works. And I want to pronounce it correctly, so just give me a second so I can say it without screwing it up. So ready? Here it comes. Because Noctera. I'll be honest, I was jealous that Brian got it and I didn't have the money with me at the time because I really wanted to get it. And that's at Image. I'm sorry, I apologize. I've said IDW. He has done things for IDW. And I would check out his online presence because it's amazing just how much stuff he has going. I try to read everything I can, and it can be overwhelming just because he's constantly writing. I have read most of his DC stuff. I can say that. I don't think I've read it all because there's always something that slips by me. But it happens. So let's see. Comics. In 2009, Snyder began writing for Marvel Comics. His first foray in the genre was a one-shot focusing on the first Human Torch, part of Marvel's 70th anniversary celebrations. He later wrote the 4-issue miniseries Iron Man Noir, which debuted in April of 2010. Vertigo began publishing American Vampire, Snyder's first creator-owned ongoing series, which we touched on. I highly recommend picking that up and just reading it straight because it is amazing. The first 5 issues feature an original storyline by Stephen King. American Vampire won the 2011 Eisner Award for Best New Series as well as the 2011 Harvey Award for Best New Series. His run as writer of Detective Comics began with issue 871 in January of 2011, which marked the beginning of his exclusive contract with DC. He and Kyle Higgins wrote Batman Gates of Gotham miniseries, which debuted in May of 2011. That was a very good miniseries. I recommend checking that out as well. Beginning in September, Snyder became the writer of both Batman and a new Swamp Thing ongoing series as part of the New 52. DC's company-wide relaunch of all of its titles. The Snyder began creating series was critically and fan acclaimed, reinventing classic characters for DC then and now. Snyder later became a co-writer for Talon, which was a spin-off of the Court of Owls. And here is something that, when I got to speak with Mr. Snyder, was that the whole Court of Owls story was supposed to be a Dick Grayson Batman story. But with the New 52, when they went back to being Bruce, he had to recalibrate the story, and then a lot of his plots and devices and growth and character development, everything that he had planned with Dick Grayson, he actually shifted and gave to Kyle Higgins to use in his Nightwing run because it was all tied in as part of this magnum opus that the Court of Owls was, that he was unable to do because Dick Grayson was no longer Batman. Very interesting. Also, it's also interesting that if you just were to read his Batman, that his Batman run into all the different kind of sections of Batman that he's done, like Last Night on Earth, Dark Knight Metal, Death Metal, it's all kind of one Batman. Even though his Batman's a continuity with other stories that, was Rebirth and all that, Snyder's Batman you can see carry through all these different books as one giant tale. And when I asked him about Batman Eternal, he stated that was part of a series that he was going to go when, if you look at how Snyder wrote in volumes for his Batman, was when they got done with the 0 year, it was going to be Batman Eternal. But because he had more stories than DC had pacing for their universe, they had to do these side books. And Batman Eternal was one of those side stories. And then the second part was Batman and Robin Eternal. Now, I will say about those series is that they're good, but the way they did it as 52 issue runs. So it was weekly. Some of it is very stretched out. But there are some really good parts in there. And you can see how at the end of Eternal, how it wraps back into where Scott Snyder was going with his Court of Owls. Excuse me. In 2012, New York Comic Con, Snyder would be writing a Superman ongoing series titled Superman Unchained with Jim Lee. The series began publication in 2013 and intended to coincide with the feature film Man of Steel, which would open 2 days later. Snyder explained his approach to this series was, the way to approach a character as iconic as him is you just come at it from a standpoint of what you love the most about the character and then write a story that explores that, tear it down and build it back up. I would like to see more of his Superman writing, see what he would do, because it'd be interesting to see what else he would do with the character. Scott Snyder also had American Vampire's Survival of the Fittest collaboration with Sean Murphy at this time. And I think the original 7-issue run of Unchained got pulled to being 9 issues. So, in 2018, Snyder, along with co-writer Tony Patrick and artist Cully Hammer, launched the miniseries Batman and the Signal, featuring Duke Thomas as Gotham's daylight protector, The Signal. A spin-off limited series from the Dark Knight's Metal, The Batman Who Laughs, was launched by him and Jock in 2019. In 2020, he and Greg Capullo released the DC Black Label miniseries Batman Last Night on Earth, described as the grand finale of their New 52 run. See what I'm saying? That same year, the two launched the follow-up Dark Knight Metals, which was like a crisis event that nobody saw coming. Snyder's, and then jumping ahead, because that's really where Snyder ended with DC. Snyder's Image series Noctera, drawn by Detective Comics artist Tony S. Daniel, was launched in March of 2021, following a Kickstarter campaign for the first issue. A television adaptation is currently in development at Netflix. In July of 2021, Snyder announced an 8-title digital first deal with Comixology Originals, all to be published through its creator-owned imprint, Best Jacket Press. The first 3, We Have Demons with Greg Capullo, Clear with Francis Manapul, and The Night of the Ghoul with Francesco Fraviella, debuted in October of 2021. Snyder, also, there is talks that somewhere they're looking at producing a Witches film or TV series based on his work. Snyder has a wife named Jeannie and 2 sons named Jack and Emmett. In 2019, Snyder announced they were expecting another child in May. Their son, named Quinn, was born May 4th, 2019. Scott Snyder is definitely he is one of the greats. I will say, as just reading comics, he's one of those names that will always be around for a long time. He has an impressive resume of books. He has an impressive resume of awards. And I don't really think that he'll kind of fade. He'll be remembered as one of the great writers that we talk about that's used in a lot of common, they mentioned Alan Moore and Frank Miller. I think Snyder will be in a breath with those writers. So that was my spotlight here, just kind of touching on Scott Snyder. We are going to be diving into his 0 year, and we'll be talking about that here soon, because of, I think, the influence that is in that book and what may be coming. But that's it. Hey, that's just me in a quick episode here. Hit up your local comic book store, find something written by Scott Snyder, from superheroes to supernatural creatures and horror. Find something, read it, and enjoy. And remember,
look up in the sky.
I want to invite you to check out the Krypton Report Patreon. For $1 a month, you can hear exclusive content. We have discussions on movies or other comics or stuff that's going on in pop culture. We have guest appearances, and we have plenty of fun times. We also have movie commentaries that we like to do. It's one of our favorite things to do. So check that out. It's just $1 a month. It's chump change, It just helps us keep the podcast going. We're not here to make, money off and get rich. It's just nice to have a little help, to pay the bills here. So $1 a month, come join us on our Patreon. Krypton Report, patreon.com.
And if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.
If you're enjoying this podcast, here's some of our favorite podcasts to check out. Digging for Kryptonite, The Aspiring Kryptonian, Superman the Animated Podcast, The Last Sons of Krypton, The Geek of Steel, The All-Star Superfan Podcast, It All Comes Back to Superman, and Superboy Legacy, Supergirl Radio, and of course, always hold on to Smallville. Check all those out, enjoy those supercasts, and remember, keep listening. The Krypton Report is a Tears production. We thank you for listening and enjoying, and please support us on our Patreon account, our TeePublic store, and check out our social media. Always remember to look up in the sky.